Welcome to Wisdom Planet. Wisdom worth spreading. Happy listening. The book I am interpreting for you today is called Hidden Potential, with the subtitle, The Science of Achieving Greater Things. It was published in October 2023. What does potential mean in the title of the book? Perhaps many people have heard their teachers or parents say a sentence when they were young: your child has great potential, work hard, and they will definitely be able to attend a prestigious school. What is the hidden meaning behind the teacher's words? It is that this child is quite intelligent, but lacks effort. Here, the teacher actually means that the child has potential, equivalent to talent. However, this book believes that this is a common mistake, which is that we place too much emphasis on a person's starting point, on those immediately visible abilities. But this is not what this book wants to talk about, the hidden potential. What stories about hidden potential will we see in this book? For example, an athlete who is perceived as average, but ends up outperforming a talented athlete. Or, someone who initially couldn't even learn a second language, but later becomes fluent in 6 languages within a few years. And even a deaf person who later becomes a world-class musician. We can see that these people actually have no advantages in terms of talent, and are even at a disadvantage. However, these stories convey what the author wants to express, which is, everyone has hidden potential, and the key lies in how to unlock it. The size of your potential does not depend on how talented you are, but on how far you can go after you start. In recent years, more and more experiments have shown us that the so-called genius myth is nothing but an illusion. This book also includes a study in which scholars investigated 120 outstanding sculptors, pianists, mathematicians, neurologists, and athletes who have won numerous awards. The results revealed that only a small number of them displayed exceptional intelligence or talent in their childhood. The majority of them were not particularly outstanding during their early years, and some may have even started off behind. So the chief psychologist of this study finally concluded, any knowledge or skill that can be learned well by at least one person in the world means that actually everyone in the world can learn it well, as long as there are suitable learning conditions. So today, this book is here to help us uncover how to create these conditions. You may be familiar with the author of this book, Adam Grant, who is a professor at the Wharton School and an organizational psychologist. He has written many books, which we have mostly interpreted, such as Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know, Give and Take, A Revolutionary Approach to Success, Option B, Facing Adversity, Building Resilience, and Finding Joy, and Originals, How Nonconformists Move the World. Grant himself is also worth mentioning. He not only teaches, conducts research, and writes books, but he is also a popular speaker and hosts 2 podcast programs, one monthly and one weekly. This sounds like he has already tapped into his potential. But that's not all, he is also a national-level diver. We will talk about how he became a diver later on. So, this author himself is someone who has fully unleashed his hidden potential. He not only studies, but also practices those methods. Therefore, the advice given in this book is not only based on extensive literature research, random experiments, and quantitative analysis he has conducted in the past, but also on his own first-hand effective experiences. 1. Personality is a skill. So what is the first research finding that the author presents to us in the book? It is that personality is a very important skill when it comes to unleashing potential. This sentence may sound a bit strange at first, so let's start by talking about an experiment. This experiment was conducted in the state of Tennessee, USA, and covered over 11,000 kindergarten students. They observed the impact of kindergarten teachers on the future income of these students. The results showed that students, who had more experienced teachers, at a young age would earn significantly more money than their peers when they grew up. Specifically, a kindergarten teacher with above-average experience levels could potentially bring an additional lifetime income value of $320,000 to a child. So, why does the level of experience of kindergarten teachers have such a long-term impact on children's income? The first thing that may come to mind is that experienced teachers can better help these children develop cognitive skills, such as numbers, words, reading, and so on. However, later research by Chetty's team found that this is not the case. The biggest impact experienced teachers have on children is actually in terms of their character. What are these character traits? There are mainly 4 of them. 1. Initiative, such as whether they will take the initiative to ask questions, answer questions, and actively seek information from books. 2. Sociability, that is, whether they can get along well and cooperate with peers. 3. Discipline, that is, whether they can effectively concentrate in class and not disrupt the classroom order. 4. Determination, that is, whether they are willing to persevere in the face of challenges and difficulties. So when a child is taught by more experienced teachers, their character performance in these 4 aspects will be better. And these character traits have a greater impact on their future income than mathematical and reading abilities. According to statistical analysis, they are 2.4 times more important than reading and math scores. This research conclusion is likely to surprise many people, because during the early education stage of children, the focus is often more on the development of cognitive abilities, and less emphasis is placed on character shaping. Therefore, if you have children at home, you can also pay special attention to the cultivation of their character in terms of initiative, prosociality, discipline, and perseverance. This book also discusses a study in the field of chess. Scholars have found that for people who are just starting to learn chess, if they are relatively intelligent, their learning speed will indeed be faster. However, if a person is already a skilled chess player, the impact of intelligence on their chess performance will become very small. This is consistent with the findings from the previous kindergarten experiment, which is that cognitive abilities bring advantages in the early stages, but these advantages diminish over time. So these experiments tell us that whether a person can perform outstandingly after growing up does not depend on talent, or even cognitive level, as many people think. The importance of personality becomes more prominent as one grows older. Whether you want to solve one puzzle after another on a chessboard, or overcome one challenge after another at work, your personality has a significant impact on you. But some friends may say, I am already grown up now, or even middle-aged. Is it too late for me to cultivate my character traits? Over 200 years ago, psychologists did suggest that a person's character would solidify like plaster by the age of 30 and become difficult to change. However, recent experiments have found that this is not the case. For example, around 2020, social scientists recruited 1,500 entrepreneurs in West Africa. Among these individuals, there were both men and women, aged between 30 and 50. They randomly divided these entrepreneurs into 3 groups. The first group served as the control group, meaning they did not receive any intervention. The second group received cognitive skills training, such as learning about finance, accounting, human resources, and marketing. The third group received personality skills training, focusing on initiative, discipline, and determination. After the training, these entrepreneurs were allowed to return to their businesses and continue operating them. The result is that entrepreneurs who receive character skills training have seen an average profit growth of 30% over the next 2 years, which is 3 times the return of cognitive skills training. Why is that? Scholars explain that while knowledge may help entrepreneurs seize opportunities, it is their character that allows them to create opportunities. They are more proactive in developing ideas and introducing new products. They take the initiative to anticipate market changes rather than passively reacting to them. When they encounter difficulties, they do not give up, but instead show resilience by thinking of various solutions. So this experiment, besides once again demonstrating the importance of character skills, also tells us one important thing, which is that it is never too late to cultivate character skills. Here you may have noticed, we have been using the term character skills instead of simply saying character. This is because this book wants to emphasize that character, like skills, is malleable and can be cultivated. Moreover, the character mentioned here is not the same as personality. Personality is an innate instinct, but character is the ability to place your values above instinct. For example, when faced with difficulties, your instinct may be to retreat and give up, but if you cultivate a resilient character, it will persuade you to persevere. So, if your original personality is only enough to climb the first hill on the road of life, by cultivating character skills, you may be able to climb the second, third, or even more. Okay, now we have clarified the importance of cultivating character skills. So, when it comes to unleashing hidden potential, which character skills should be emphasized? 2. Embrace discomfort. First type, this is a type of courage, called embracing discomfort. Let's start with a true story. The main characters of the story are Maria and Benny. They are both what we would consider language prodigies, fluent in 5 or 6 languages, and proficient enough in a few others to have fluent conversations. They learned these languages in a relatively short period of time. Maria learned 6 new languages from scratch in less than 10 years. On average, Benny takes less than 5 months to learn a language. Are they the kind of people who are naturally gifted in languages? Not really. For example, Maria studied Spanish for 6 years when she was young, but still couldn't learn it well. Benny, on the other hand, studied Irish for 11 years, but still couldn't speak it well. Why did they become people who could master foreign languages in a short period of time when they grew up? Usually, we think that children learn languages the fastest. But these two individuals seem to suddenly acquire the magical ability to grasp languages only after reaching adulthood. How did they do it? After the author learned about the stories of these two people online, he decided to find out the answer to this question. Then he discovered that what propelled them to take the first step towards success, and truly master the first foreign language, was not overcoming any cognitive barriers, but rather because they started embracing discomfort. For example, Maria used to constantly read books, memorize vocabulary, and do exercises when she first started learning a foreign language. However, she was not very confident in speaking, because she always felt that her knowledge was not enough and was afraid of sounding foolish. So she kept hiding in her comfort zone, only reading and writing, but not speaking. Until she went to college and studied linguistics, she realized that her previous methods were wrong. It's like reading a bunch of books about ice skating and expecting to perform a perfect triple jump. It's impossible. If you want to excel in a language, you have to speak it out loud. So she started looking for various opportunities to practice speaking and eventually mastered the Spanish language that she had always struggled with. In this book, there is also a discussion about a new educational trend called learning style theories. This theory suggests that if a student finds learning difficult, it is because the current teaching methods do not suit their learning habits. Therefore, you should teach them using methods that they are accustomed to and excel in. They also categorize learners, such as visual learners who prefer learning through images, auditory learners who prefer learning through listening, and so on. There are even kinesthetic learners who need to learn through physical movement and experimental activities. This learning style theory has become very popular in recent years. It seems advanced, but the author and many experts have found that this theory lacks research support. In addition, in recent years, specialized research has found that using learning methods that students prefer does not necessarily lead to better learning performance. Another more research-supported way to improve learning efficiency is to use the most suitable learning method for each learning task. For example, as we mentioned earlier, learning a language is best practiced by speaking out loud. If it is a knowledge area that requires strong logical thinking, it is more suitable to engage in written reading rather than just listening. So there's a sentence in this book that I think is quite accurate. It says that those who are fond of learning style theories would believe that learning in a certain way is good for one person, while learning in another way is good for another person. However, they overlook one point, which is that the key to learning is not to find the right method for you or any individual, but to find the right method for the task itself. And often, those methods that make you uncomfortable are actually the ones that help you make progress faster, because they provide greater stimulation to your brain. Let's think about what is most comfortable. Of course, daydreaming is the most comfortable, because your brain is slacking off. So Benny and Maria, these two people, have a big characteristic, which is that they actively seek discomfort. For example, Maria moved to Madrid and found a job teaching English, actively choosing to live with a family that only speaks Spanish. By the end of that summer, she was already fluent in Spanish. Also, Maria's fiancé is Chinese and his family speaks Cantonese. So she set herself a challenge, which was to give a toast in Cantonese at their wedding. This pushed her to crazily learn Cantonese, effectively forcing herself to improve her Cantonese proficiency. There's also Benny. Benny's uncomfortable way of hugging has reached a new level. He intentionally makes it awkward. Benny used to be socially awkward, but in order to practice foreign languages, he not only initiates greetings and small talk with foreigners, but also sings local songs to locals. He has given this behavior a brave name: social skydiving. Of course, during the process of communication, he encounters many awkward moments and makes many mistakes, such as introducing himself with the wrong gender, or referring to scenery as buttocks. However, Benny is actually happy during these times, because he sees every awkward moment and mistake as an opportunity for improvement. He even sets making mistakes as a goal, aiming to make at least 200 mistakes every day. He measures his progress by the number of mistakes he makes. So the author says, when we start learning a skill, we shouldn't always think, I'll start using it and practicing it when I'm fully prepared. If that's the case, you're actually spoiling yourself. You won't wake up one day suddenly feeling ready. So what is the correct way? The book puts it nicely: we become prepared by taking the leap anyway. In other words, it's not about being prepared before taking action, but rather taking action to truly become prepared. No matter what, take that first step and then see. 3. Become a human sponge. Okay, what I just mentioned was a personality skill called embracing discomfort. Now let's talk about another personality skill called becoming a human sponge. This is also a concept that I really liked when reading this book. When it comes to sponges, you might first think of the kind we use for cleaning in the kitchen. But the sponge we're talking about here is not that kind, but rather an animal. It is one of the oldest animals on Earth. As early as 500 million years ago, there was a massive extinction event on Earth, even more destructive than the extinction of the dinosaurs. During that time, over 3/4 of the species on Earth died, but sponges survived and went on to dominate the oceans. Sponges, as animals, look like bushes and are usually completely still. They not only absorb things from the outside like kitchen sponges, but also filter out toxic substances. They absorb water and nutrients through their outer walls and then expel them through what looks like tiny mouths. This ability to absorb, filter, and adapt allows sponges to thrive in extremely harsh environments. Some sponges can even survive for over 2,000 years. And the sponge's ability to absorb, filter, and adapt is also important for humans. It is not just a metaphor, but also a character skill, a skill to actively absorb and filter surrounding information, which is very important for exploring our hidden potential. Below, let's talk about a real-life story of a human sponge. The protagonist of this story is a javelin athlete named Julius. He grew up in a very poor village in Kenya, Africa. From a young age, he loved the sport of javelin and later joined a professional training team. However, his physical condition was not ideal, as he was relatively thin. In contrast to Julius, another javelin athlete from Egypt, Ihab, had excellent physical condition. He was tall, strong, and had long and powerful arms. Initially, Julius's training and performance in competitions were much worse than Ihab's. However, after 8 years, Julius surpassed Ihab's performance and won the gold medal at the 2011 All-Africa Games, completing a remarkable comeback. If we look at the performance curve of Julius and Ihab, we will find that Ihab had a good start, but has been fluctuating since then. On the other hand, Julius' grades have been steadily improving, which is why he eventually surpassed Ihab. So what caused the huge difference in their performance curves? The key lies in the fact that Julius and Ihab have different ways of absorbing information. Ihab is also diligent, but he always passively absorbs information and does whatever the coach tells him to do. On the other hand, Julius takes responsibility for his own growth. He not only absorbs the coach's advice, but also actively seeks out any information that can help him. For example, he spends a long time watching videos of top javelin throwers on websites, constantly observing their techniques, and then training himself. Julius has been doing this throughout his athletic career, so his progress has been continuous. As we mentioned earlier, he surpassed Ihab for the first time in 2011 and won the championship at the All-Africa Games. Later in 2015, he won the World Javelin Championships. In 2016, despite being injured, he still won the silver medal at the Rio Olympics. So how do you become a human sponge? There are 2 key points. First, it depends on how you absorb information. Are you proactive like Julius, actively seeking new knowledge instead of waiting for others to feed it to you? Second, can you effectively filter information? How do you filter information? There is a criterion. You need to select information that promotes your own growth, rather than information that simply satisfies you. For example, if you enjoy reading articles online that support your own views, or if you like hearing others praise you, these are the types of information that only provide self-satisfaction. How can we filter out information that promotes our own personal growth? I found a practical suggestion in a book, which is to not provide feedback, but instead offer suggestions. What does it mean? Let's take the author as an example. The author himself is quite introverted, so how did he become a popular speaker? He not only applied what we mentioned earlier, embracing discomfort and actively speaking up to practice, but also absorbed various useful information. He also has a practice, which is that after each speech, he doesn't ask others if they think the speech was good or not. Instead, he asks them where he can improve. This is about seeking suggestions rather than feedback. This way, you will receive more constructive answers. It is a sponge-like mindset. It means not dwelling on what you did wrong in the past, but focusing on how to do better in the future. 4. Be an imperfectionist. Okay, just now we talked about the personality skill of being a human sponge. So next let's take a look at another personality skill, being an imperfectionist. When it comes to being an imperfectionist, many people may immediately think of one phrase: completion is more important than perfection. This sentence mainly states that in learning or work, perfectionism often helps to improve efficiency and speed up iteration. However, what is the relationship between perfectionism and uncovering hidden potential? Or in other words, how does perfectionism limit the realization of our potential? This book discusses that perfectionists often make 3 mistakes in the pursuit of perfection. Firstly, they will become obsessed with some trivial details, neglecting the overall progress in order to solve minor issues. Secondly, They will be more willing to solve simple problems, because they can achieve perfection in these areas. This makes them dislike taking risks, and avoid challenging tasks, or developing new skills. The third one is that perfectionists often get caught up in the mistakes they have made, blaming themselves, instead of focusing on how to learn and grow from those mistakes. This is why perfectionism limits our potential. So there's a sentence in this book that I find quite interesting. The author says that if perfectionism were a medication, the label would warn us about one common side effect, which is the possibility of stunting our growth. The author also mentioned how he transformed from a perfectionist to an imperfectionist. It is about how the author became a national-level diver. The author first came into contact with diving in the summer of his first year of high school. He had always been a good student at school. One tendency that often appears in good students is perfectionism, wanting to eliminate all wrong answers, and all areas where they don't perform well. When the author first started practicing diving, he also applied this mindset to his practice. He wanted to perform every movement perfectly and desired to enter the pool without causing any splashes. He practices very hard, but he finds that this perfectionism is slowing down his progress. Because he would spend several hours trying to eliminate the splashes when entering the water, instead of challenging more difficult moves. He has always been doing the most basic move, which is diving straight into the water, and he has never attempted any more challenging moves. Sometimes, he would continuously think about the details of the moves on the diving board, pacing back and forth for 45 minutes, but he never tries to jump in. Later, the coach told him that he was wasting time and hindering his own progress. If he wanted to improve, he needed to overcome his perfectionism. So how do you change this perfectionism? The method given in the book is extracted from a large amount of empirical evidence, and it can be summarized as aiming for high standards rather than demanding perfection. This means that you should focus your attention on a challenging goal and strive towards it, without overly fixating on whether every action in the pursuit of that goal is perfect. Returning to the story of the author's diving. His coach told him that in fact, there is no perfect dive in the world. Even in the Olympics, a perfect score of 10 in diving does not represent perfection, but rather excellence. So the author began to change his mindset. He told himself that he didn't need to achieve perfection, he just needed to aim for a clear and high goal, and then challenge himself towards that goal. So he no longer avoided difficult actions, and started pushing the limits of his abilities. He also stopped blaming himself for mistakes, and instead focused on how to improve for the next time. With the help of this mindset, the author made rapid progress in diving and became a national-level diver before graduating from high school. This is the story of how the author underwent a transformation. In this book, he also discusses a common concern among perfectionists: if I fail, will others think poorly of my abilities? The author here provides a reassurance, which is that research shows that when people assess someone's abilities, they tend to focus more on their peaks rather than their lows. For example, we all know that Shakespeare is a great playwright, a genius playwright. But now I'll mention a few play titles. Listen, I'm Watching You, Ties of Athens, The Merry Wives of Windsor. Do you feel unfamiliar with them? But these are actually works created by Shakespeare, some of his less remarkable works. You see, we don't judge Shakespeare based on these works, but rather on his best ones. So, people judge your potential based on your best moments, not your worst ones. And stepping back, as many people say, you actually don't need to care too much about how others see you, because it's impossible to please everyone. The person you should please the most is yourself. So, on the path to excellence, the author suggests that we frequently ask ourselves this question: if this is the only work people see of you left in the world, would you be proud of it? This interrogation is of our own inner selves. The purpose of our pursuit of excellence should not be to satisfy the expectations of others, but to meet the standards of our own inner selves. 5. Deliberate gaming. Okay, what we just talked about is the character skills we should have in the process of exploring potential. However, having character skills alone is not enough, you also need to have motivation. This is similar to a car. Having good performance alone is not enough, you need to fill it up with fuel for it to run far. So, how can we inject ourselves with strong motivation? Is it by cheering ourselves on, encouraging ourselves, or setting rewards? None of these. They all rely on external motivation. But this book suggests that we should seek intrinsic motivation, which is a constant source. It's like a car that doesn't need to be refueled from the outside. It can continuously fill its own gas tank as it moves forward. How to achieve it? The method is simple. Don't deliberate practice, play deliberately. Deliberate practice is already a well-known concept, which we also emphasized in the book Bounce, Mozart, Federer, Picasso, Beckham, and the Science of Success. This concept mainly emphasizes that when practicing a skill, you should have a strong sense of purpose. You should practice towards a goal that exceeds your current ability, and once you achieve it, immediately move on to the next level of difficulty. This way, you repeat the process. However, this process is often very difficult, and the difficulty can make it hard for people to persevere. That's why many people know about deliberate practice, but only a few can ultimately reach an excellent level. Therefore, a better approach is to inject fun into the process of deliberate practice, and turn it into a deliberate game. Here we will talk about an example, which was mentioned at the beginning, about a girl who couldn't hear with her ears, but became a world-class musician. This girl is named Evelyn Glennie. She is the world's first full-time percussion soloist, who has won 3 Grammy Awards and is also the first percussionist to receive the Polar Music Prize, also known as the Nobel Prize of Music. So how did she do it? Throughout her entire process of studying music, she approached it with a mindset of playing games. For example, she would imagine her whole body as a giant ear, sensing the vibrations that different pitches brought to different parts of her body, and then connecting them. For instance, high notes resonated in her face and neck, while low notes reverberated in her feet and legs. Furthermore, she will constantly upgrade the game. At first, she could only roughly distinguish pitch, but later on, she became more and more precise. In the end, she could differentiate notes solely by the vibrations on her fingertips. And her coach will constantly give her changing tasks, raising the standards, for example, making her interpret classical music with a modern style. Never let her feel bored. So she said, "For me, there is no difference between pleasure and effort." Evelyn's training process embodies many typical elements of deliberate play, such as making the training format enjoyable, using diverse methods, and constantly setting higher challenges. In many fields, such as healthcare, liberal arts education, and sports training, these methods have been proven effective and can significantly enhance learning outcomes. The author said that another great example he encountered comes from a basketball coach named Brandon. This coach designed a game activity menu for the players, constantly changing the way they play games. For example, you have to score 21 points within a specified time, whether it's through three-pointers, jump shots, or layups, it's all allowed. But every time you score, you have to run to the middle of the court and back again. This simulates the feeling of being out of breath on a real game court. And then he keeps shortening the specified time, making the game increasingly difficult. In addition, during the entire deliberate practice process, it is important to note that you cannot play the same game all the time. If you feel bored, switch quickly. For example, Evelyn, when she feels bored, switches instruments and plays different percussion instruments. And there's that basketball coach. He doesn't let players practice one skill and then move on to the next. Instead, he mixes game challenges targeting different skills together. For example, he might have players complete several different game challenges within 20 minutes. There have been hundreds of experiments that have shown that people make faster progress when they alternate between different skills. This applies not only to music and sports, but also to many other fields such as painting and mathematics. Even small changes can be effective, such as switching between thinner and thicker paintbrushes, or slightly adjusting the weight of a basketball. The training effect of that basketball coach is also remarkable. With his help, there is an athlete who is shorter, thinner, and weaker than his peers, but he has grown into one of the most famous and award-winning basketball players in the world. This person is Stephen Curry. Of course, not everyone who trains like this can become a Curry. But this approach can indeed better unleash your potential. For example, there is an ordinary person who spends 2 hours every day imitating Curry's training. At the beginning, his three-point shooting percentage was only 8%, but after 50 days, it reached 40%. So, although people often say, the harder you work, the higher you climb, scientific research tells us that the fastest way to unleash potential is not through hardship, but by turning hardship into enjoyment. I particularly like the phrase used in this book, called play by play. Yes, our process of progress should not be about persisting painfully day by day, but about evolving in the game, play by play. Above is the essence of this book's content. Congratulations on finishing another book. Thank you for your support. Please subscribe to our Wisdom Planet audiobook channel. Like and share it with family and friends. Wisdom worth spreading and opening up a better future. Thank you and see you again.